Everybody, this is Jared with Redeemed Outdoors. I'm going to be bringing y'all this week's devotion, and just so happens this devotion falls on New Year's Eve, so it's going to be everybody, this is Jared with Redeemed Outdoors. I'm going to be bringing y'all this week's devotion, and it just so happens this week's devotion falls on New Year's Eve, so I hope everyone's being safe out there and ready to ring in the new year. This week's devotion is going to be out of 2 Corinthians chapter 3, starting in verse 12. It says, "Seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech, and not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Israel could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. But their minds were blinded. For until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Christ. But even unto this day, when Moses is read, the veil is upon the heart. Nevertheless, when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. Now the Lord is that Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord." And what Paul's talking about here is, he mentions Moses, talking about having a veil on his face. He's talking about back in Exodus when Moses goes back up on Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments again. Once he comes down, he had been in the presence of God and had the glory of God on his face, and his face shined bright. And he had to wear a veil over his face to block out the glory, because it was too much for the Israelites to handle. And he says later on, he says that even to this day, they have a veil between them and God. But it's because of their own choosing. Because a little bit later in the passage it talks about the veil was taken away by Christ. When Christ died on the cross, the veil was torn. There was no longer an isolation from God. There was no longer a veil between us and God. He goes on to encourage you to say, hey, we have the glory of God. It's no longer, the covenant's no longer written on stone. It's now written on our hearts. So we shouldn't wear a veil over it. We shouldn't wear a veil over the glory of God that shows through us. And we shouldn't wear a veil over the covenant, the promise that He has made with us in our hearts. We should be sharing it. We should be shouting it from the rooftops. So this week's devotion is a little short, but it's a strong message. And I hope as we go into 2021 that if you're keeping a veil up, you're not showing what God's doing in your life, what He's done in your life already. Tear that veil down. Jesus tore that veil 2,000 years ago. You don't have to hide it. Shout it from the rooftops. I hope everyone has a safe New Year's. God bless.